Ever had a day at work so bizarre, so utterly nonsensical that you just wanted to flip your desk and walk out? Well, some folks in America actually did. We're not talking about low pay or long hours today. Oh no. We've unearthed 49 reasons people quit their jobs that are so ridiculous, they sound like fever dreams. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about workplace sanity. 1. First up, the malevolent office printer. This wasn't just any old machine. It was a master of passive-aggressive paper warfare. It jammed. It overheated. It feigned ignorance of print commands with an almost sentient stubbornness. The climax of its reign of terror? The day it methodically shredded the employee's resignation letter, character by character. And honestly, that was the most cooperation they ever got out of the damn thing. 2. Then we have the manager who viewed lunch breaks as an untapped resource for more work. Picture this. You're salivating over your sad desk salad, your one sliver of midday peace, when a calendar invite pings, lunch break synergy brainstorm. One long-suffering employee noted this wasn't an occasional mishap. It was a weekly digestive tragedy, watching their boss devour a steak while they nursed a cold sandwich in sales projections. Eventually, they decided their stomach lining and their will to live were non-negotiable. 3. Consider the office enveloped in an aroma so uniquely foul, it defied all olfactory explanation. A ghastly potpourri of ancient burnt popcorn, the ghosts of carpets past, and a lingering, damp mystery funk. No one knew the source, one survivor whispered. And even more terrifying, no one was brave enough to mount an expedition to find out. After months of developing what they suspected was a new type of sinus infection, they opted for an employer whose air didn't require a biohazard waiver. 4. All right. For this next one, you might want to dim the lights. An employee swears their office wasn't just poorly managed, it was actively haunted. We're talking doors slamming with no wind, lights flickering like a bad omen, and the distinct sound of footsteps when everyone else had clocked out. The absolute, I'm calling an exorcist and then HR moment. Seeing their computer screen blaze to life, unaided, at midnight. Their resignation basically read, "Not paid enough to debug spreadsheets and poltergeists?" 5. The workplace chameleon, the coworker who masterfully took credit for anything that wasn't nailed down. Collaboration is one thing. This was grand larceny of intellectual property, performed with a smile. They'd present my painstakingly crafted ideas in meetings as if they'd descended from Mount Sinai. Ideas in hand, an ex-employee fumed. Being the ghostwriter for someone else's career gets old fast. So they didn't just quit. They took their ideas and their spotlight elsewhere. 6. We had too many meetings. A phrase that echoes through the cubicle farms of America like a mournful cry. This wasn't just a packed schedule. It was a relentless barrage of gatherings. Pre-meetings for meetings, post-meeting debriefs for meetings that could have been an email, and strategy sessions to determine if more meetings were needed. Productivity wasn't just dying. It was being slowly suffocated in a conference room. The only logical escape was to schedule a permanent meeting with unemployment. 7. Then there's the company with a dress code so anachronistic and illogical, it felt like a social experiment. We were in a windowless back office, zero client contact. Yet it was full business suits, no exceptions, a former staffer recalled, still sounding bewildered. The cherry on this sartorial Sunday? The CEO, who set these draconian rules, paraded around in Birkenstocks and a Hawaiian shirt. The sheer, unadulterated hypocrisy finally prompted a wardrobe change, from suit to civilian clothes, permanently. 8. Imagine your daily commute being less of a drive and more of an endurance sport. This employee's office was strategically located in a vortex of perpetual gridlock, a place where rush hour was a 24/7 existential dread. I did the math, they confessed, and I was spending more quality time with my steering wheel than with my kids. That cold, hard calculation was the only green light they needed to find an exit ramp from that job. 9. Never underestimate the power of the small things, like, say, toilet paper. This company, in a stroke of cost-cutting genius, switched from a perfectly acceptable two-ply comfort to something that felt like recycled sandpaper. It wasn't just the abrasive experience, one former employee delicately put it. It was a daily, scratchy reminder of how little they thought of us. They flushed that job and went in search of softer pastures. 10. Every company needs a slogan, right? Something inspiring, memorable, or in this case, something so utterly nonsensical it became an office-wide inside joke. Ours was something like, synergizing future word, unlocking potentialities apart. An ex-employee deadpanned. We spent more time trying to figure out what it meant than actually working. Their parting suggestion to HR was a new slogan. We're confused, and so are you. 11. Your desk location can make or break your workday. For one unfortunate soul, their assigned spot was less prime real estate and more adjacent to the porcelain throne. The symphony of flushes, the aromatic ambiance, it was a multi-sensory assault. I developed an uncanny ability to predict bowel movements based on approaching footsteps, they shared. Eventually, the siren song of a workspace not within earshot or nose shot of the bathroom became irresistible. 12. The old "we're a family" line often precedes the expectation of family working for free. This company mastered the art of expecting unpaid overtime, cloaking it in the warm embrace of corporate camaraderie. They'd talk about dedication and team spirit while I was missing my kid's bedtime for the third night in a row, one employee stated. Their resignation letter included an itemized invoice for all those family hours. No word on whether it got paid. 13. Get ready for this one, because it's a doozy. A company actually instituted mandatory weekly weigh-ins for its staff. Yes, you read that correctly. They spun it as a corporate wellness journey, one former employee scoffed, but it felt more like a public shaming ritual. The absurdity was staggering. What was next? Mandatory flossing checks before conference calls? Key performance indicators based on your body mass index? They opted out of that particular journey right quick. 14. Some coworker habits are merely annoying, others are biohazards. This office featured an individual who regularly performed personal manicures at their desk. The constant rhythmic click-clack of the nail clippers was bad enough, a visibly shaken ex-employee recounted. But when a rogue toenail clipping landed in my coffee, well, let's just say my flight response kicked in. Immediately. Some things you just can't unsee or unswallow. 15. The simple act of parking your car shouldn't feel like you're navigating a minefield in a horror movie. But for this employee, the office parking lot was a daily dose of dread. Dim lighting, potholes that could swallow a small child, and a general air of lawlessness. The grand finale? I opened my car door one morning to find a raccoon calmly eating my emergency granola bar from the glove compartment. The raccoon, apparently, also decided it was time to move on. So did the employee. 16. Working for a boss whose moods shifted more erratically than a weather vane in a tornado is a special kind of psychological gauntlet. One moment, they're your biggest cheerleader. The next, they're unleashing verbal napalm over a typo. It wasn't just walking on eggshells. It was like navigating a minefield, blindfolded, during an earthquake, an ex-employee explained. Preserving what was left of their sanity became priority number one. Adios, emotional roller coaster. 17. Pets in the office? Potentially charming? A coworker's parrot with an attitude and an uncanny knack for mimicry? Less so. This particular feathered fiend didn't just squawk. It absorbed and regurgitated everything. It mastered the boss's signature sigh of disappointment, an employee recalled, and would deploy it during tense meetings. The bird also developed a fondness for shouting "objection" during presentations. Eventually, the choice was clear. Either the bird goes, or I do. The bird stayed. 18. Imagine being trapped in a musical Groundhog Day, forced to listen to the same dozen songs on an infinite loop every single workday. For one employee, this auditory torture was their reality. I started having visceral reactions to the opening bars of certain pop songs, they admitted. I think Sweet Caroline might actually trigger a panic attack now. Their resignation was less a career move and more an act of desperate sonic self-preservation. 19. There's personal fragrance, and then there's deploying a scent so potent it could be classified as a non-lethal weapon. A coworker's perfume was so overwhelming, it was like being perpetually trapped in an elevator with a freshly sprayed skunk wearing Chanel. My eyes watered, my sinuses screamed for mercy, and polite requests for moderation were met with an extra spritz, one victim lamented. They finally quit, citing atmospheric toxicity as the primary reason. 20. Some companies view flexibility as a four-letter word. This one demanded on-site presence, even when Mother Nature was unleashing her icy fury. They made me drive through a full-blown blizzard, risking life and limb, just to sit in an office that was emptier than a politician's promise, a worker fumed. The sheer glacial stupidity of the policy was the final push. They found a remote job the following week, presumably while wearing pajamas. 21. You should really smile more. Oh, the infuriating, condescending audacity. As if a plastered-on grin could magically fix understaffing, overwork, or just plain misery. If my face looks like I'm contemplating the abyss, one employee thought, it's because your management style is the abyss. Instead of trying to fix the actual problems, they wanted happy little drones. So they gave them the biggest, most liberating smile they could muster, as they slid their 2 weeks' notice across the desk. 22. Hydration. A basic human need. Unless, of course, you worked at the office that bizarrely banned water bottles at desks. Management claimed it looked unprofessional to be seen. Drinking water, an incredulous ex-employee shared. We had to sneak sips like we were bootlegging moonshine during Prohibition. When a company starts legislating your fluid intake, it's a pretty clear indication that their own common sense has completely evaporated. 23. A company car. What a perk. Or so one employee thought, until they laid eyes on the perk. It was less a vehicle and more a mobile testament to automotive decay, a rust bucket that seemed to run on sheer willpower and prayer. I developed a first-name basis with every tow truck driver in a 50-mile radius, they sighed. Eventually, I realized I was spending more on snacks for the mechanics than I was earning. The car didn't just break down, it broke their spirit. 24. There are certain unalienable rights in the workplace: a functioning computer, breathable air, and coffee. So when one company implemented a no-coffee policy, claiming it hindered productivity, the sheer, unadulterated irony, it was tantamount to a declaration of war. They replaced the beloved coffee machines with dispensers of lukewarm herbal tea, an ex-employee recounted, still visibly traumatized. That wasn't just a policy change, it was a crime against humanity. I was out of there before the chamomile steeped. 25. The humble desk snack. A soldier in the daily battle against afternoon slumps and soul-crushing meetings. So when management, citing concerns about crumb proliferation, outlawed all desk-side nibbling, it was the final insult for one dedicated snacker. My survival hinged on that 3 p.m. handful of almonds, they confessed. Faced with a future devoid of strategic sustenance, they didn't just clear their snack drawer, they cleared their entire desk. Permanently. Some battles aren't worth fighting on an empty stomach. 26. Next, we have the coworker who decided their desk was a prime location for a 24/7 reality show. They were constantly live-streaming their workspace for their burgeoning YouTube channel, one bewildered ex-employee shared. Privacy? Apparently, that was an outdated concept. I felt like I was an unwilling background character in someone else's bid for internet fame. Every sigh, every yawn, potentially broadcast to strangers. The constant, unspoken pressure of being on camera eventually led to a permanent off-air status. 27. Prepare for a new level of micromanagement, having to clock in and out to use the restroom. Yes, you read that correctly. There was a special dedicated punch clock right by the bathroom door, a former employee recounted, still sounding incredulous. It wasn't just humiliating, it felt like something out of a dystopian novel where bodily functions are billable hours. The decision to leave was made before they started itemizing toilet paper squares on their paychecks. Some indignities are just a flush too far. 28. The bring your pet to work policy, Sounds adorable, right? A fluffy, tail-wagging utopia? Not always. One employee's idyllic vision shattered when a coworker's Labrador developed a taste for their carefully prepared lunches. I'd turn around and my sandwich would be gone. Poof, vanished into the canine abyss, they lamented. You can't reason with a hungry lab. It was a clear case of me or the dog, and management seemed to be siding with the four-legged food thief. So, they packed their remaining lunch and left. 29. It's one thing to be new, another to be perpetually nameless. Imagine busting your hump daily, only to be consistently addressed by your boss as, "Hey, you there," or "Pal," or "What's your face?" For one employee, this wasn't just a memory lapse. It was a glaring neon sign that they were utterly invisible. After a month of being that guy in accounting, I figured if he couldn't even be bothered to learn my name, he probably wouldn't notice if I just stopped showing up. So they did. 30. Motivational quotes can be a nice little pick-me-up, unless they're delivered daily with the subtlety of a sledgehammer by your manager. She'd leave these chipper little sticky notes on my monitor every morning, an ex-employee recalled. Things like, "Seize the day," or "Be the change." The irony peaked the day she left one that said, "Don't quit, grit it out." That, as it happens, was the precise moment I decided to, in fact, quit. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. 31. Imagine an office where the air itself seemed to be marinated in the ghosts of forgotten lunches. A perpetual miasma of stale popcorn, the haunting aroma of day-old fish, and a general funk of microwave mishaps. It was an olfactory battlefield, one survivor stated. The final pungent straw was the week someone decided to microwave broccoli for lunch. Every single day. My sinuses officially tendered their resignation before I did. Some smells just make you want to run for the hills or at least a different zip code. 32. Personalizing your workspace can make it feel a bit more human, a bit less like a sterile cog-in-the-machine holding cell. But one company decided that personal photos at desks were a bridge too far into unprofessionalism. They wanted our desks to look like stock photos of desks, an employee shared. No family pictures, no vacation snapshots, nothing that indicated we had lives outside those four beige walls. The result? An office so cold and impersonal, it made a morgue look cozy. They left to find a place where having a personality wasn't a demerit. 33. The Great Office Thermostat War, a battle as old as central air itself. One corner shivers under Arctic blasts, the other sweats in a tropical heat haze. In this particular office, the conflict escalated from passive-aggressive adjustments to outright espionage, with employees sneaking to fiddle with the controls during bathroom breaks. It was a never-ending cycle of freezing and thawing, one casualty reported. When it became clear that thermal equilibrium was a pipe dream, they packed their parka and resigned, presumably in search of a climate and a job that was just right. 34. There's a special kind of betrayal that comes with having your brilliant ideas brazenly swiped by your own manager. You pour your creativity into a concept, share it with enthusiasm, only to see your boss present it as their own brilliant brainchild the very next day. I watched them get praised, then promoted, based on my work, one ex-employee fumed. It became painfully clear that I was just an uncredited ghostwriter for their career advancement. The only idea left to pitch was their own resignation. 35. Some sounds are just universally grating. And for one employee, the sound of a coworker's enthusiastic, open-mouthed chewing was their personal auditory kryptonite. Crunch, smack, slurp. Every meal, every snack was a full-volume broadcast. It wasn't just background noise, it was like having someone eat directly into a microphone next to your ear all day long, they said, wincing at the memory. My focus shattered, my sanity frayed. I had to escape before I started fantasizing about noise-canceling headphones the size of cement mixers. 36. Natural light. A simple yet crucial element for human well-being. This office, however, seemed to operate on the principle that sunlight was for the weak. It was like working in a well-lit cave, one former inhabitant described. No windows, just fluorescent bulbs humming their depressing tune. I'd emerge at the end of the day blinking like a mole, unsure if it was day or night. Eventually, the vitamin D deficiency and the creeping sense of being a corporate vampire became too much. They quit to rejoin the sunlit world. 37. Employee recognition is great. Celebrating every minor achievement as if you've just cured world hunger? Not so much. This company took small wins to an absurd extreme. We'd have mandatory hour-long celebrations complete with lukewarm cake if someone managed to send an email without a typo, one worker sighed. It felt less like appreciation and more like a colossal waste of time that could have been spent, actually working. They left in search of a company that understood the concept of proportionality. 38. Imagine a workplace where laughter is explicitly forbidden. Yes, a no laughter rule, enforced with an iron fist by the boss. She claimed it was unprofessional and distracted from synergy, or some other corporate buzzword, a former employee recounted, still marveling at the sheer joylessness. The vibe was so tense, you could hear a pin drop and probably get written up for it. How do you survive an 8-hour day without a single chuckle? They decided to find a job where mirth wasn't a terminable offense. 39. Hot desking. The corporate trend that promises efficiency but often delivers a daily dose of existential dread. One employee found themselves in a perpetual game of musical chairs with their own workspace. I'd arrive in the morning and all my carefully arranged pens and stress balls would be gone, replaced by someone else's clutter because it was their desk day, they explained. It made me feel like a transient, a perpetual guest in my own job. They opted for a more permanent desk elsewhere. 40. Office music can be a great motivator, a pleasant background hum. Unless your boss has a deep, abiding passion for old-timey polka music and believes the entire office shares this enthusiasm at full volume. It was a relentless onslaught of oompahs and accordions from 9 to 5, one traumatized worker shared. I developed a twitch every time I heard a tuba. There's only so much spirited yodeling a person can take before they snap. Their resignation letter probably had a polka beat. 41. There are certain workplace behaviors that defy easy categorization, existing in a realm of pure, unadulterated cringe. Case in point, the co-worker who insisted on speaking to everyone in a baby voice. "Can whittle you please send me the Weeport by Fuiokwak?" An ex-employee mimicked, shuddering. It was bizarrely endearing for about 5 seconds. After the 100th Tankwu Berry Much, my will to live began to dwindle. They left before they started responding in kind. 42. Comfort is often sacrificed at the altar of professionalism, but some dress codes take it to an extreme. This company had a strict no sneakers policy, even on so-called casual Fridays. We were expected to totter around in stiff dress shoes, regardless of how much walking or standing our jobs entailed, one employee with aching arches recalled. My feet were staging a daily protest. I finally decided my podiatric health was worth more than their arbitrary fashion rules. 43. Imagine your boss not just noticing your bathroom breaks, but actively monitoring and timing them. They'd literally ask, "Everything okay in there? You were gone for 7 minutes," one worker revealed, the humiliation still fresh. It felt less like a workplace and more like a high-security prison where even your bladder was under surveillance. The decision to take a permanent, unmonitored break from that company was an easy one. Some things are just not up for discussion or timing. 44. Running an office on a shoestring budget is one thing. Refusing to buy basic functional supplies is another level of cheap. Broken staplers that mangled documents, pens that surrendered mid-sentence, and a perpetual shortage of sticky notes became the norm. I started bringing in my own pens, paper, even my own stapler, an employee said. But it felt utterly ridiculous. Am I working for them, or am I subsidizing their office supply budget? They stapled their resignation to their now empty desk. 45. The office break room microwave, often a battlefield of forgotten food and questionable hygiene. This one, however, was a true monument to culinary neglect. Sticky buttons of unknown origin, splatters that told tales of exploded lunches, and an aroma that could curdle milk at 50 paces. I tried. I really did. I cleaned it once, armed with gloves and industrial-strength bleach, one valiant soul recounted. The next week it was worse. I realized I wasn't an employee. I was Sisyphus, and that microwave was my boulder. 46. We all know the type, the perpetual hummer. The colleague whose internal soundtrack is always playing, just loud enough to drill into your subconscious. For one employee, this wasn't charming eccentricity. It was a slow descent into madness. It wasn't even coherent tunes, just random, off-key humming all day, they groaned. One July, they got Jingle Bells stuck on a loop in my brain for 3 solid days. It was either their humming or my sanity. The humming won, temporarily. I left. 47. Coffee. For many, it's not just a beverage. It's the fuel that powers a civilization, or at least the workday. So, when the office, in a misguided attempt at promoting health, replaced all caffeinated coffee with decaf-only options, it was a declaration of war. I was mainlining tea and still nodding off during important spreadsheets, one ex-employee lamented. It came down to a simple choice: quit or invest in a personal, industrial-grade espresso machine to keep at my desk. They chose the path of least resistance and highest caffeine elsewhere. 48. In an era of digital everything, you'd think printing would be less scrutinized. Not at this office. The printer, it turned out, was a snitch, tracking every single page that came out of it. Management would get reports on who printed what and how much, one worker revealed. It felt incredibly invasive, like Big Brother was monitoring my paper consumption. The paranoia peaked when I had to print my resume. I half expected an alarm to go off. 49. There are lunch smells. And then there are lunch smells. The kind that announce their presence 3 cubicles away and linger like an unwelcome house guest. One employee endured a coworker whose daily midday meals were an olfactory assault. Leftover fish, pungent curries, eggs boiled to a sulfuric perfection. I tried holding my breath, discreetly opening windows in January, even investing in a personal air freshener the size of a small dog, they sighed. Nothing worked. It was either my job or my ability to breathe without gagging. My nose made the final call. And there you have it, 49 glimpses into the sheer, unadulterated madness that can drive an American worker to say, "I'm done." Honestly, after hearing these, if your worst day at the office doesn't involve a rogue office pet or a war over the thermostat, are you even truly living the American dream? Drop your most insane, "I almost quit," or "I actually quit" story in the comments below. We dare you to top these. And if this parade of absurdity made you feel slightly better about your own 9 to 5, do us a solid. Demolish that like button and subscribe for more reasons to question reality. You won't regret it, probably.